The stars above New Haven Colony sparkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Captain Han Jiwoo stood on the observation deck of his patrol ship, watching the mining colony below go about its evening routine. The lights from the settlement created warm patches against the dark landscape of Arcturus Prime. He had been protecting this colony for 3 years now, and in all that time, nothing exciting had happened. That was exactly how he liked it. Down on the colony surface, Dr. Park Mina finished her shift at the medical center. She walked home through streets filled with families and workers returning from their jobs in the mines. Children played in the parks, their laughter echoing off the dome walls that protected them from the thin atmosphere outside. This was a good place to live, safe, peaceful, far from Earth's crowded cities and political troubles. Young Cho Dae-hyun ran ahead of his parents, his arms spread wide like he was flying. At 8 years old, the boy was fascinated by everything about space. He collected pictures of different alien species that humanity had encountered. He built model spaceships from scrap metal his father brought home from the engineering bay. His room was covered in star charts and drawings of planets he wanted to visit someday. Dae-hyun, slow down, his mother called, but she was smiling. Her son's energy was endless. I want to see the stars, Mom, the boy shouted back. Captain Jiwoo said his ship would fly over tonight. Everything changed 3 weeks later when the sensors detected something massive entering the system. Captain Han Jiwoo was immediately alert. His crew scrambled to their stations as the unknown vessel appeared on their screens. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of his patrol ship. The design was unlike anything in human records. Open a channel, Jiwoo ordered. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. First contact with an unknown species was always dangerous. The face that appeared on the screen made several crew members gasp. The alien stood at least 7 feet tall with a body covered in crystalline plates that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. It had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands. Its eyes were deep purple and seemed to glow from within. I am Scout Commander of the Vraxian Collective, the alien said. Its voice came through the translator as smooth and cold. We have detected your mining operations. We wish to speak with your leaders. Captain Jiwoo kept his expression neutral. Welcome to human space. I will relay your message to our diplomatic corps. Ambassador Kim Sujin arrived at New Haven Colony 5 days later. She was a veteran diplomat who had handled first contact situations with 4 other species. She believed in peaceful solutions and the importance of building bridges between civilizations. The Vraxians, she thought, could become valuable allies. The first meeting took place in the colony's main conference hall. The Vraxians sent 3 representatives, all tall and imposing in their crystalline armor. They moved with fluid grace that seemed almost hypnotic. When they spoke, their voices carried an edge of superiority that made some humans uncomfortable. Your species is young, one Vraxian said. You have much to learn about this galaxy. Ambassador Kim smiled politely. We are eager to learn. Perhaps we can teach each other. The Vraxian tilted its head in what might have been amusement. Perhaps. Over the following weeks, negotiations continued. The Vraxians were interested in some of the rare minerals that New Haven mined. They offered advanced shield technology in exchange. It seemed like a fair trade. But there were small moments that bothered some of the humans. The Vraxians referred to humans as younglings, even when speaking to elderly colony leaders. They touched human equipment without asking permission. When Commander Lee Hyunwoo, head of colony security, tried to discuss safety protocols, the Vraxians waved him off dismissively. Your weapons are primitive, they said. What need have we for your security measures? Captain Han Jiwoo watched all of this from his ship. Something felt wrong. He had learned to trust his instincts during his years in space. The Vraxians were too confident, too dismissive. They acted like they owned everything they saw. Keep our weapons ready, he told his crew quietly. Just in case. His second officer looked surprised. Sir, we're in the middle of peaceful negotiations. I know, Jiwoo said. But I've seen this attitude before. Species that think they're superior rarely respect those they consider beneath them. Down on the colony, young Dae-hyun was thrilled by the alien visitors. He watched the Vraxians whenever they appeared in public areas. He drew pictures of them in his notebook. He asked his parents endless questions about where they came from and what their home planet looked like. Can I meet them? He asked Dr. Park Mina one day when he came to the medical center with his mother. I want to see their ship up close. Dr. Park smiled at the boy's enthusiasm. Maybe when you're older, Daehyun. The Vraxians are very serious about their privacy. But I just want to see the stars, the boy said. And their ship has been to so many places. Ambassador Kim Soo-jin organized a cultural exchange event to celebrate the successful trade negotiations. It would be held partially on the colony and partially aboard the Vraxian diplomatic vessel. Humans would demonstrate their music and art. The Vraxians would share some of their cultural practices. Everyone was excited. This felt like the beginning of something wonderful. Humanity reaching out to another advanced species. New friendships forming across the stars. Captain Jiwoo received his invitation to attend. He accepted but made sure his ship remained on high alert. His crew thought he was being paranoid. Maybe he was. But 20 years in space had taught him that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. The Vraxians had welcomed humanity with open arms and smooth words. They had offered technology and trade. They had smiled their crystalline smiles and spoken about cooperation and mutual benefit. But Captain Han Ji-woo had seen the way they looked at humans when they thought no one was watching. He had heard the contempt hidden beneath their polite words.
He had noticed how they treated human workers like
servants and human leaders like children playing at government. The Vraxians thought humanity was weak, primitive, beneath them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. But first they would make a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake that would change everything. A mistake involving one curious 8-year-old boy who just wanted to see the stars up close. The cultural exchange was scheduled for the following week. Daehyun was already counting down the days. The day of the cultural exchange arrived with clear skies and excitement throughout New Haven Colony. Families dressed in their best clothes. The colony's small orchestra practiced their pieces. Artists set up displays showing Earth landscapes and scenes from humanity's journey to the stars. Everyone wanted to make a good impression on their new alien friends. The Vraxian diplomatic ship had landed in the main plaza, its massive bulk gleaming in the afternoon sun. The crystalline hull reflected light in spectacular patterns that made children point and stare in wonder. Young Daehyun stood with his parents, his eyes wide with amazement. He had never seen anything so beautiful. "Stay close to us," his father said, holding his hand firmly. "No wandering off today." "I promise," Daehyun said, but his attention was already fixed on the alien vessel. Somewhere inside that ship were star charts from hundreds of worlds, technology that could cross galaxies, stories about places he had only dreamed about. Captain Baek So-min had brought her supply vessel down from orbit to attend the celebration. She stood with Commander Lee Hyun-woo, watching the crowd gather. Both of them noticed the Vraxian guards stationed around their ship. The aliens stood motionless, their forearms crossed over their chests, their purple eyes scanning the crowd with what seemed like contempt. "They look friendly," Beck said sarcastically. "They've been like that since they arrived," Lee replied. "I tried to coordinate security protocols with them. They told me human security was unnecessary because nothing here could threaten them. Arrogant. Very. Ambassador." Kim Soo-jin welcomed everyone and gave a short speech about cooperation and friendship between species. The Vraxian representatives responded with their own words about the collective's long history and their willingness to guide younger races toward enlightenment. Several humans in the crowd frowned at the phrasing, but they kept quiet. This was supposed to be a celebration. The cultural demonstrations began. Human musicians played classical pieces and modern compositions. The Vraxians listened with expressions that might have been interest or might have been boredom. When it was their turn, they produced devices that created holographic images of their homeworld while playing sounds that felt like crystals singing. It was strange and beautiful and completely alien. During a break in the presentations, refreshments were served. The crowd began to mingle. Daehyun's mother was talking with Dr. Yoon Jina, the colony's child psychologist. His father had stepped away to speak with a colleague from the engineering section. For just a moment, no one was watching the boy. That was all the time he needed. Daehyun had spotted a small entrance near the rear of the Vraxian ship. The door was open and he could see soft blue lights inside. His heart raced with excitement. Just a quick look. He would see inside a real alien spaceship and be back before anyone noticed. His parents would never even know. He slipped through the crowd, small and quick, and ran toward the opening. The interior of the Vraxian ship was even more amazing than he had imagined. Walls made of something that looked like living crystal pulsed with inner light. Symbols he couldn't read scrolled across transparent panels. Everything hummed with power. Daehyun walked forward slowly, his eyes trying to see everything at once. He found himself in a large circular room. The walls were covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. In the center of the room stood a pillar of pure white crystal that glowed softly. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Daehyun took one step closer. That was when the Vraxian guards found him. 2 of them appeared from a side corridor, their crystalline armor making sharp clicking sounds as they moved. When they saw the human child standing in their ceremonial chamber, something changed in their demeanor. Their purple eyes flared brighter. Their forearms uncrossed, and Daehyun saw they were holding weapons. "Desecration," one of them hissed. The translator made the words sound like breaking glass. Daehyun felt fear flood through his body. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice small. "I just wanted to see." "You have violated sacred space," the second guard said. "Under Vraxian law, the penalty is death." The boy tried to run, but he was too small and too slow. The first guard's weapon flashed with purple light. The energy beam caught Daehyun in the chest and threw him backward. He hit the crystal wall and fell to the floor. Outside, Dr. Park Mina heard the commotion first. She was near the ship's entrance when she heard a child scream. The sound cut off suddenly, replaced by the sharp crack of energy weapons. She started running before she even realized what she was doing. "Medical emergency," she shouted into her communicator. "Inside the Vraxian ship." Commander Lee Hyunwoo and a dozen security officers rushed toward the vessel. The Vraxian guards at the entrance tried to block them, but Lee pushed past. Inside the ceremonial chamber, he found a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Young Daehyun lay on the floor, his small body broken and burned. Dr. Park Mina was already beside him, her hands moving with desperate speed as she tried to stabilize him. The boy's eyes were open but unfocused. Blood pooled beneath him. The 2 Vraxian guards stood nearby, their weapons still drawn, their expressions showing no remorse. "What have you done?" Lee whispered. "The youngling violated sacred space," one guard said simply. "We enforced our law." Park Mina looked up, tears streaming down her face. "He's dying. Help me get him to medical." Within minutes, the entire colony knew something terrible had happened. Daehyun's parents arrived at the medical center to find their son fighting for his life. Dr. Nam Ji-hoon, the colony's trauma surgeon, worked with Park Mina and every available medical staff member. But the damage was too severe. The Vraxian weapon had been designed to kill armored warriors. On a small human child, the effect was catastrophic. Ambassador Kim Soo-jin confronted the Vraxian representatives in the conference hall. Her diplomatic composure had shattered. "You killed a child," she said, her voice shaking with rage and grief. "An 8-year-old boy. He violated our sacred chamber," the lead Vraxian replied calmly. "Our laws are clear. The desecration of holy spaces is punishable by death regardless of age or species." He was curious. He was a child. "Ignorance of our laws does not excuse violation of them. We expect your people to offer formal apology and compensation for requiring us to enforce our cultural practices." Kim stared at the alien in disbelief. "Compensation? You want us to pay you for killing a child?" The incident was regrettable but necessary. "We trust this matter will be resolved quickly, so our trade negotiations can continue." Captain Han Ji-woo stood in the back of the room, his fists clenched so tightly, his knuckles were white. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to draw his weapon and end these creatures. But he held himself still. There were proper channels, laws, procedures. But as he watched the Vraxians dismiss the death of an innocent child with cold indifference, he knew something fundamental had just changed. Not just for him, but for all humanity. News of the incident spread through human space at the speed of light. Every colony received the report. Earth's government was notified immediately. Within hours, billions of humans knew that aliens had murdered a human child and then demanded an apology for being forced to do it. In the medical center, young Daehyun took his last breath surrounded by his parents and Dr. Park. "Mina." His final words were barely a whisper. "I just wanted to see the stars." Then he was gone. The boy who had dreamed of exploring the galaxy would never leave Arcturus Prime. His journey to the stars had ended before it truly began. But his death would send shockwaves across human civilization that would doom an entire alien species. The news of Daehyun's death reached Earth 18 hours after it happened. President Choi Sun-hee was in a cabinet meeting when her aide interrupted with the report. She read it once, then read it again, unable to believe what she was seeing. The room fell silent as she passed the document around the table. "They killed him," she said quietly. "They killed a child and demanded we apologize to them." Admiral Kang Taeyang, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, was the first to speak. The Vraxians have made similar demands to 3 other species in the past 50 years. Each time the species submitted, paid compensation, accepted the humiliation. The Vraxians believe this makes them strong. "What happened to those species?" someone asked. "They became vassals. Within a generation, the Vraxians controlled their territory, their resources, their entire civilization." Kang's voice was hard. "This is how they operate. They push boundaries, demand submission, and crush anyone who resists." President Choi stood and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, she could see the lights of humanity's capital city spreading across the landscape. Billions of people living their lives, trusting their government to protect them, trusting her. "They picked the wrong species to test," she said. The emergency session of Earth's Unified Council was broadcast across every human colony and settlement. Representatives from all nations, all factions, all political groups gathered. There were no debates, no arguments, no dissenting voices. The vote was unanimous. Total mobilization. President Choi Sun-hee addressed humanity from the council chambers. Her speech was brief. Every word was chosen carefully. Every sentence carried weight. 3 days ago, an 8-year-old boy named Cho Dae-hyun was murdered by the Vraxian collective. His crime was curiosity. His punishment was death. The Vraxians have demanded we apologize for this incident and pay them compensation. They believe their laws justify the killing of our children. They believe we will submit like other species have submitted. They are wrong. She paused, letting the words sink in. The Vraxians have drawn a line we cannot ignore. They have shown us that they value their pride more than innocent life. They have demonstrated that they see us as lesser beings, unworthy of basic respect. We have tried peace. We have offered friendship. They have answered with murder and contempt. So now we respond in the only language they understand. As of this moment, a state of war exists between humanity and the Vraxian collective. The broadcast ended. No questions were taken. No further explanation was needed. On New Haven Colony, the entire population gathered for Daehyun's funeral. Captain Han Ji-woo stood at attention in his full-dress uniform. Dr. Park Mina read a statement from the boy's parents, who were too devastated to speak. Commander Lee Hyun-woo and his security team served as honor guards. Every person present wore a black armband with Daehyun's name embroidered in white. The Vraxians, still present on the colony, observed the funeral with what seemed like amusement. They sent no representatives, offered no condolences. One Vraxian was overheard saying the humans were being dramatically emotional over a minor incident. That comment was recorded and transmitted to Earth. It became one of the most shared pieces of media in human history. Admiral Kang Taeyang activated humanity's entire military machine. Every shipyard shifted to war production. Civilian vessels were retrofitted with weapons. Researchers working on peaceful technologies were reassigned to weapons development. Millions of people volunteered for military service in the first week alone. But humanity had learned an important lesson from centuries of warfare on Earth. Raw numbers meant nothing without proper preparation. Technology without tactics was useless. Anger without discipline led to defeat. So they prepared carefully, methodically, thoroughly. Dr. Shin Yuna led a team of scientists who had been working on theoretical weapons for decades. Projects that had been considered too dangerous or too expensive suddenly received unlimited funding and complete government support. Within weeks, they produced results that surprised even their creators. Quantum disruption missiles that could phase through shields. Nanite swarms that could dissolve crystalline armor at the molecular level. AI-coordinated attack patterns that could predict and counter enemy movements. Weapons specifically designed to destroy the Vraxians. The Vraxians, monitoring human communications, laughed at these preparations. They had crushed dozens of species throughout their long history. They had fought wars that lasted centuries. What could these young humans possibly do in a few weeks that would threaten the mighty collective? They sent a small fleet to New Haven as a show of force. 20 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had fielded before. The fleet commander broadcast a message to the colony. Submit now and your punishment will be light. Resist and we will erase New Haven from existence. You have 1 day to decide. Captain Han Jiwoo received orders from Admiral Kang personally. Fall back. Draw them in. Make them confident. Then show them what we've built. Understood, sir, Jiwoo replied. A cold smile crossed his face. It will be my pleasure. The Vraxian fleet advanced on New Haven colony expecting an easy victory. Human ships retreated before them, seemingly in panic. The Vraxians pursued, their confidence growing. They had seen this before. Young species always broke when faced with real military might. They didn't notice the human ships were retreating in specific patterns, leading them into exact positions, drawing them deeper into carefully prepared kill zones. When the Vraxians were exactly where Admiral Kang wanted them, the order came. All units, execute Protocol Daehyun. The human ships that had been retreating suddenly reversed course. Their new weapons came online, and the Vraxians learned what humanity had built in the weeks since murdering a child. Quantum missiles appeared inside Vraxian ships, bypassing shields completely. Nanite swarms ate through crystalline hulls like acid through paper. Human fighters moved with impossible coordination, their AI systems predicting Vraxian tactics before the aliens even executed them. Wing Commander Lim Seo-hyun led her fighter squadron through the Vraxian formation like a knife through silk. Every shot found its target. Every maneuver put them in the perfect position. The Vraxians, used to fighting slower species, couldn't adapt fast enough. In 30 minutes, the entire Vraxian fleet was destroyed. Not defeated, not damaged. Completely annihilated. 20 warships reduced to debris and crystalline dust. Only one Vraxian ship was allowed to survive. Its weapons disabled. Its engines barely functional. Captain Han Jiwoo personally delivered a message to its commander. Return to your collective. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that humanity does not forgive. Tell them that we are coming. The damaged Vraxian ship limped away from New Haven, carrying news that would shake their entire civilization. On Earth, President Choi Sun-hee received the battle report. Admiral Kang stood beside her, his expression grim but satisfied. The first battle is won, he said. But this is just the beginning. I know, Choi replied. The Vraxians will not accept this defeat. They will come at us with everything they have, Let them come. We'll be ready. Across human space, factories worked around the clock. New weapons came online every day. Millions of volunteers completed training. Entire fleets launched from shipyards, each one equipped with technology specifically designed to kill Vraxians. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member wore a patch on their uniform. It showed the face of young Cho Daehyun looking up at the stars. Beneath his picture were 2 words that became humanity's battle cry: never again. The Vraxian High Council convened in their grand chamber on their homeworld. The massive room was carved from a single piece of crystal that had stood for 10,000 years, witnessing the rise of their empire across dozens of star systems. Today, that crystal seemed to dim as news of their fleet's destruction spread through the council. Impossible, one counselor declared. 20 warships destroyed by primitives? There must be some mistake. The surviving fleet commander appeared via hologram, its crystalline armor cracked and burned. There is no mistake. The humans have developed weapons we have never encountered. They fought with precision and fury we have never seen. Every ship in my fleet was destroyed in less than an hour. Another counselor waved a dismissive hand. One battle means nothing. We have fought wars that lasted centuries. These humans have existed in space for barely a generation. We will crush them as we have crushed all who opposed us. The Vraxian military mobilized their main battle fleet, 300 warships carrying millions of soldiers, prepared to teach humanity the price of resistance. They would start by destroying New Haven colony completely. Then they would move to Earth and force humanity's surrender. The campaign would be swift and brutal. Fleet Admiral Park Junho received intelligence about the Vraxian mobilization from his command ship. He was a veteran of several peacekeeping operations and had studied Vraxian tactics for years. He knew how they thought, how they fought, how they always underestimated their enemies until it was too late. They're coming at us with overwhelming force, he told his staff. They think numbers will win. They're wrong. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Kang on Earth. Sir, requesting permission to implement Operation Starfall. There was a pause. Operation Starfall was aggressive, risky, and would commit humanity's entire military force to a single massive engagement. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless. Permission granted, Kang replied. End this. Ambassador Ryu Minho was sent to deliver humanity's final terms to the Vraxian High Council. He was young for a diplomat, but had proven himself skilled at difficult negotiations. This time, however, he was not there to negotiate. He was there to deliver an ultimatum. The Vraxians received him in their council chamber with barely concealed contempt. They saw a single human standing before them, small and fragile, representing a species they had already marked for subjugation. You come to surrender, one counselor asked. No, Ryu replied calmly. I come to offer you one final chance to prevent your destruction. Surrender those responsible for Daehyun's murder. For trial under human law, pay reparations to his family. Accept human oversight of your military to prevent future atrocities. Do this and we will consider peace. The entire council chamber erupted in laughter. The sound was like crystals shattering, harsh and cruel. You dare make demands of us? The head counselor said. We who have ruled this region of space for millennia? We who have crushed empires greater than yours? Your species will be slaves within the year. Your children will serve our children. Your worlds will fuel our expansion. This is your future, Ryu nodded slowly. I expected this response. Then let it be known that we offered peace. What comes next is your choice, not ours. He turned and left the chamber. Behind him, the Vraxians continued laughing. They had no idea they had just sealed their fate. The Vraxian main fleet entered human space with confidence. 300 warships in perfect formation, advancing on New Haven colony. They expected the humans to retreat again, to run before their superior might. Instead, they found something very different. Humanity's entire military force was waiting for them. Every ship, every fighter, every weapon system activated at once. The space around New Haven became filled with human vessels, and every single one carried Daehyun's patch on its hull. Wing Commander Lim Seo-hyun led the fighter attack. Thousands of small craft swarmed the Vraxian formation like angry insects. Each one was piloted by humans who had volunteered to face the species that murdered children. Their coordination was perfect. Their accuracy was absolute. Their fury was controlled but visible in every action. Sergeant Ominji's Special Forces team had infiltrated 3 Vraxian command ships weeks earlier, waiting in hiding for this exact moment. When the battle began, they emerged from concealment and struck at the heart of Vraxian command and control. Bridge crews died before they realized they were under attack. Command systems went offline. Communications collapsed. The quantum missiles launched next. They phased through shields and armor, appearing inside Vraxian ships and detonating. Whole vessels disappeared in flashes of light. The Vraxians tried to adapt, but the human weapons changed tactics faster than they could respond. Nanite swarms were released next. Billions of microscopic machines that sought out crystalline armor and dissolved it molecule by molecule. Vraxian soldiers watched in horror as their supposedly impenetrable armor simply fell apart around them. Their weapons stopped working. Their life support failed. Fleet Admiral Park Jun-ho coordinated the attack from his command ship, watching his tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Vraxians had brought 300 ships. Humanity was destroying them systematically, methodically, without mercy. Captain Han Ji-woo's ship, the Dauntless, led surgical strikes on Vraxian capital ships. His crew had trained for this moment. Every officer wore a picture of young Daehyun on their uniform. They spoke his name before every attack run. They remembered why they were here. Target their flagship, Ji-woo ordered. All weapons. Full power. The Dauntless unleashed everything it had. Quantum missiles. Nanite swarms. Kinetic rounds moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The Vraxian flagship, a massive vessel that had served for 2 centuries, broke apart under the assault. Its commander went down with the ship, still unable to believe that primitives had defeated them. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, not a single Vraxian warship remained intact. Escape pods filled space as the survivors abandoned their destroyed vessels. Humanity could have destroyed them all, could have wiped out every Vraxian soldier in that fleet. Instead, Admiral Park broadcast a message to every escape pod. You are being allowed to survive so you can carry a message back to your homeworld. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humanity showed you more mercy than you showed an 8-year-old boy. Tell them that we are coming, and we will not stop until justice is served. Then the human fleet began moving toward Vraxian territory. Not to conquer, not to occupy, but to dismantle, to eliminate, to ensure that the Vraxian collective would never threaten another species again. Other alien civilizations watched these events with growing shock. Humanity, the young species that most had dismissed as insignificant, was systematically destroying one of the galaxy's ancient powers. The speed and efficiency of the human assault was terrifying. Diplomatic envoys began arriving at Earth by the dozen. Species that had ignored humanity before suddenly wanted treaties, alliances, trade agreements, anything to ensure they never became humanity's enemy. President Choi Sun-hee met with each one personally. Her message was always the same. Humanity desires peace. We seek friendship with all species willing to treat us with basic respect. But understand this, we protect our own absolutely. Harm any human, especially a child, and you will face consequences beyond your imagination. We are slow to anger, but we never forget. The diplomats left Earth with a clear understanding. Humanity was no longer a minor player in galactic affairs. They were a force to be feared and respected in equal measure. And they were not finished with the Vraxians yet. 6 months after the death of Cho Dae-hyun, the human fleet reached the Vraxian homeworld. The journey had been marked by systematic destruction of every Vraxian military installation along the way. Orbital platforms, defense stations, supply depots, weapons facilities, all reduced to debris. The Vraxians fought desperately at each location, but the outcome was always the same. Human forces overwhelmed them with superior tactics, advanced weapons, and absolute determination. Each battle was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. Other species watched in stunned silence as humanity dismantled an empire that had stood for millennia. Admiral Kang Tai-yang personally commanded the final assault from his flagship. He had requested this assignment specifically. He wanted to be present when humanity delivered justice for a murdered child. Around him, the largest fleet ever assembled by humans moved into position around the Vraxian homeworld. The planet below was beautiful, cities of crystal that caught starlight and transformed it into rainbow displays, vast gardens visible even from orbit, ancient monuments to 10,000 years of Vraxian civilization. It was a world that had never known defeat, never experienced invasion, never faced the consequences of its own arrogance. The Vraxian High Council broadcast a message to the human fleet. Their tone had changed dramatically from the confident contempt they had shown Ambassador Ryu months earlier. Now there was fear in their voices. "Please," the head counselor said, "we agree to your terms. We will surrender those responsible for the child's death. We will pay reparations. We will accept oversight. Please spare our world." Admiral Kang listened to the plea without expression. Then he opened a channel to every Vraxian communication system on the planet. His words would be heard by every member of their species. 6 months ago, you murdered an innocent child. When we asked for justice, you laughed. You demanded we apologize to you. You threatened to enslave our entire species. You believed your power made you untouchable. You were wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in across an entire world. You asked for mercy. We will show you the same mercy you showed Cho Dae-hyun. The Vraxians watching from the surface felt their blood turn cold. They understood what was coming, but Admiral Kang surprised them. We are not like you. We do not kill children. We do not commit genocide. We do not destroy entire species out of revenge. But we will ensure you can never threaten anyone again. The assault began, but it was precise and targeted. Human ships struck at military installations only, command centers, weapons factories, shipyards, government buildings. Every symbol of Vraxian military power was systematically destroyed. Captain Han Min-seo commanded a squadron tasked with dismantling the Vraxian capital city's defenses. His ships moved with surgical precision, destroying military targets while carefully avoiding civilian areas. It would have been easier to simply obliterate everything. But humanity had chosen a harder path. We could kill them all, his weapons officer said quietly. For what they did to Dae-hyun, we would be justified. Perhaps, Han Min-seo replied. But then we would become what we're fighting against. We're here to neutralize a threat, not commit atrocities. Remember that. The battle for the Vraxian homeworld lasted 3 days. At the end, their military capacity was completely eliminated. Their fleet was gone. Their weapons were destroyed. Their government buildings were rubble. But civilian casualties were remarkably low. The Varaxian High Council was captured and brought before a human tribunal. They stood in a simple courtroom, no longer surrounded by crystal grandeur. Human judges read the charges against them: murder, attempted genocide, war crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. The 2 guards who had killed Daehyun were sentenced to life imprisonment. The counselors who had ordered the attack on humanity received similar sentences. But there was no death penalty, no torture, no revenge killings. Elder Counselor Young Daewon observed the trials from Earth. He had argued against the war from the beginning, worried that humanity would lose itself in the pursuit of vengeance. Now, watching the measured justice being applied, he felt a mixture of relief and sadness. "We won," he said to President Choi Sun-hee, "but at what cost?" "The cost of maintaining our principles," she replied. "We could have exterminated them. Many people wanted that. But we chose justice over revenge, discipline over rage. That's what makes us different from them." "I hope history remembers it that way," Jung said quietly. Varaxian territory was placed under human oversight. Their colonies were given the choice: accept human governance or gain independence with human support. Most chose independence. They wanted nothing more to do with the collective that had brought them to ruin through arrogance. The Varaxian species itself was not destroyed, but their power was broken completely. They were scattered, humbled, reduced from galactic overlords to survivors trying to rebuild from ashes. It would take them centuries to recover if they ever did. Captain Han Ji-woo retired from military service after the war. He could not shake the weight of everything he had seen and done. The victory felt hollow. A child was still dead. No amount of justice could bring Daehyun back. He returned to New Haven Colony, where a memorial had been built in the boy's honor. A statue of young Daehyun stood in the main plaza, his face turned upward, his expression full of wonder. The inscription read, "He wanted to see the stars. Now the stars remember his name." Ji-woo visited the memorial every day. He was not alone. Hundreds of people came to pay respects, to remember, to ensure that the sacrifice of one innocent life would never be forgotten. Dr. Park Mina continued her work at the medical center, but she also established a foundation in Daehyun's name. It provided medical care and education for children across all human colonies. It funded programs to teach different species about each other, to prevent misunderstandings that could lead to tragedy. Daehyun's parents eventually spoke publicly about their son. They thanked humanity for seeking justice, but asked that people remember their son not as a victim, but as a curious, joyful child who loved the stars. They established a scholarship program that sent young people to study xenobiology and diplomacy, hoping to build bridges between species. The Varaxian War became a defining moment in human history. It established humanity as a major galactic power, but more importantly, it demonstrated what humanity stood for. They would defend their own absolutely. They would seek justice relentlessly. But they would not become monsters in the process. Other alien species approached humanity with new respect, some with fear, many with admiration. Diplomatic relations expanded rapidly. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges brought species together in ways never seen before. The galaxy was changing and humanity was at the center of that change. But everyone remembered the lesson of the Varaxians. Everyone knew what happened when you harmed a human, especially a child. The story was told on 1,000 worlds in 1,000 languages. The warning was clear: humanity protects its own. Historian Yang Eunji spent years documenting the war. She interviewed soldiers, diplomats, civilians, even captured Varaxians. Her comprehensive history became required reading in schools across human space. She made sure Cho Dae-hyun's story was told completely, honestly, without propaganda or glorification. "We must remember why we fought," she wrote in her conclusion. "Not for conquest, not for glory, but because a species murdered an innocent child and felt no remorse. We answered with measured fury. We showed them that humanity will not tolerate atrocities, but we also showed them that we are better than they are. We chose justice over vengeance. We chose principles over rage. That is what makes us human." On Earth, in a quiet cemetery, Daehyun's parents placed flowers at their son's grave every week. The headstone was simple: just his name, his dates, and the words he spoke before entering that Varaxian ship. "I just wanted to see the stars." Admiral Kang Taeyang stood in the distance, as he had done every week since the war ended. He saluted the grave of a boy he had never met but whose death had changed the galaxy. He carried that weight and would carry it until his own death. The stars above shone brightly as they always had. But now they held a different meaning. They were not just points of light in the darkness. They were a reminder, a promise, a warning. Humanity had reached for the stars with hope and wonder. They had been met with violence and contempt. They had responded with fury and justice in equal measure. And now every species in the galaxy knew the truth. Harm a single human child and humanity would make you pay, not with genocide, not with mindless revenge, but with absolute unwavering justice. They would dismantle your power, break your strength, ensure you could never threaten anyone again, but they would not become the monsters they fought. That line they would never cross. Young Daehyun's dream had been to see the stars. He never got that chance, but his death ensured that millions of other human children would grow up safe, protected by a civilization that would move the heavens themselves to keep its young safe. In the end, that was the legacy of the Vraxian War. Not conquest, not glory, but the absolute certainty that humanity would protect its own, no matter the cost. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The price of harming a human child was higher than any species could afford to pay, and the stars remembered his name.